Hi, I'm Roxy Keller, and I am baking my way through the Great British Baking Show Challenges, and it is week 8 of the season that was recorded in 2017, and week 8 of this season is Forgotten Bakes. So this is the Showstopper Challenge, and the bakers were challenged to make something called a Savoy cake. And I think it's something like an angel food cake. I can't actually find any recipes for something called a Savoy cake. Apparently, these were large, multi-tiered cakes that had no frosting, and again, were like an angel food cake. These were a centerpiece that they made in like the 1800s in Great Britain. And apparently no one actually ate them because they were so bad tasting. They were just basically used as centerpieces. So the bakers had to make delicious Savoy cakes or angel food cakes, and most of them did. However, since I couldn't find a recipe for a Savoy cake, and I'm not really a big fan of angel food cake, I decided to make something different. I am going to make a Boston cream cake. This is coming from my Bake from Scratch book from volume 4, and this is a Boston cream cake that is typically made in a tube pan. I don't have a tube pan, so I'm just going to make it in a bundt pan. It should be fine. It'll just add a little bit of extra interest in the top of the pan. So this is my bundt pan, and to prepare the pan, I'm spraying it with a baking spray that has flour in it. This stuff works great. And I just need to make sure that I get it in all of the little crevices so that when I turn it over, it will come out and have the pretty ridges on the top. So that's how it looks after I spray it. So this cake recipe uses the traditional creaming method, where we're going to mix the eggs and the butter and the sugar together, the liquids or the wet ingredients, and then we're going to mix the dry ingredients together and then blend those two together. So first I'm going to mix together the dry ingredients: 344 grams of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons or 10 grams of baking powder. The recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of salt, but I use salted butter. I'm using 2 sticks of butter, and each stick has approximately 1/4 teaspoon of salt, so I'm just adding half a teaspoon of salt. Whisk together the dry ingredients. To the bowl of my stand mixer, I'm adding 2 sticks plus a little bit of butter, mine is salted, and the recipe calls for 1 cup or 240 grams. Well, a stick is actually half a cup and it's 113 grams. So 2 sticks is only 226 grams. So if you follow the grams, you actually have to go a little bit more than 2 sticks. So 240 grams of salted butter at room temperature, 300 grams of sugar, or 1.5 cups. Using the paddle attachment, I'm going to blend this on medium for about 3 to 4 minutes. The granules of sugar will cut into the butter and make the butter fluffy, so give it some air. So that takes about 3 to 4 minutes. Scrape down the sides of the bowl, halfway through mixing. Okay, so I cracked open 2 whole eggs plus 3 egg yolks. I'm going to add those one at a time, 1 yolk at a time. I think one of the reasons you add so many egg yolks is just to make it such a pretty yellow color. Now we add 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Now I need to add the flour mixture alternately with a cup of, the recipe calls for buttermilk. I don't have buttermilk and I never have it in the house, but an easy alternative is to use 1 cup of whole milk plus a tablespoon of vinegar. I like to use this shield because it keeps the flour from going everywhere. It still tends to come out a little bit, but not nearly as bad. Okay, so with the mixer running, I will add a few scoops of the dry mixture and pour in some of the milk, do it back and forth until I've added it all. Okay, so after all of the ingredients are incorporated, we don't want to overblend because that will start to create gluten in the flour and it will make the cake tough. We want it to be soft. Now for the filling. In a second bowl that fits my stand mixer, I'll start with 4 ounces or 112 grams of softened cream cheese, 100 grams of granulated sugar. Now I need to add a 1/4 cup of butter, 1/4 cup of butter. I use salted butter, 1 tablespoon of vanilla bean paste, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. With the paddle attachment, I'm going to mix this until smooth. So the vanilla filling gets 1 more ingredient after it's blended smooth, and that's 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. The recipe says use immediately. Not sure what the big rush is, but maybe the flour. But we're ready to use it, so we will assemble the ingredients in the bundt pan. I put my vanilla filling in a pastry bag to make it easier to get in the correct spot in the cake, but you could just use a spoon. Okay, I need to put about 2/3 of the cake batter in the bundt pan. You can probably eyeball it. I like to be as precise as possible, so I'm actually weighing my bowl and taking out 2/3. I know how much my bowl weighs, so I can subtract it so I know how much my batter weighs. Okay, I'm just going to smooth that out a little bit so that it's spread nicely around. I'm even trying to put a little bit of a trough with my spoon because now I'm going to pipe in the cream. And we don't want the cream to touch the edges of the pan. Now I just need to put the rest of the cake batter on top of the cream. Spread that around. When I was trying to decide what kind of cake to do in place of an angel food cake, I had selected about 6 or 7 choices and asked my husband which one he wanted. So he picked this one, and I'm glad because I love a Boston cream donut or Bavarian cream donut, and this is kind of similar. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees. It says it will take about 55 minutes. I'll check it after 45, toothpick, not where the cream is, but toward the center where there's just cake and see if it's done. So into the oven. Okay, well that was only 45 minutes, and I used the toothpick and it came out clean. The cream sort of spooged out the top, but yeah, it's definitely clean. So I'm going to let that cool for about 10-15 minutes and then turn it out and we'll do the ganache. Okay, so you turn out the cake when it's warm but not too hot to touch, and that's exactly how it is right now. It's probably been about half an hour. I'm going to put it in this cake. I like to try to get it centered, and there we go. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, to make the ganache, I need 3/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. And the book says that's 180 grams, but that's exactly 3/4 of a cup. This is heavy whipping cream, and it's 166 grams. Okay, 3/4 cup of heavy whipping cream into a small saucepan. I need 225 grams of 60% semi-sweet chocolate, and that happens to be exactly what Nestle Toll House semi-sweet morsels are. So I'm just going to use these. They say 8 ounces or 225 grams. I'm going to heat the heavy whipping cream on the stove top. It says to boiling, but I'm going to do it just short of boiling, so when it starts steaming pretty good, and then I'll bring it back over and pour it over my chips. Okay, this was just starting to simmer, so I'm going to pour it over the chocolate. 3/4 cup of heavy cream, heated on the stove just until it almost started to boil, pouring that over my chocolate. Let that sit for 30 seconds. Now stir. Okay, it's nice and mixed. Now I'm adding 1 tablespoon or 14 grams of salted butter. Get that to melt. Last ingredient is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, time to pour it over the cake. I'm just smoothing it out a little bit. It's a couple of bubbles, probably based on how I poured it. Well, I think it looks great. I can't wait to try it. Okay, I'm going to cut a piece. Looks pretty good. It looks like the picture. The cream doesn't really have much of a different color to it, but let's give it a taste. Make sure I get some of the filling. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Well, that is Boston cream cake. And this is the end of week 8, Forgotten Bakes. And thank you for joining me. For the next episode, we are starting week 9, which is the last week before the finals. And it's patisserie week. So patisserie is just a French bakery. And so I think they mean it in this context that the bakers will have to make French pastries. So they will be challenging. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.